I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits.
Welcome to WTC Squadcast, a podcast focusing on international matters, tournaments, communities, and the World Team Championship. The WTC is a proud partner of the T-Sports Network, Best Coast Pairings, and is sponsored by The Army Painter. If you'd like to support the podcast and the WTC, please visit our Patreon at www.patreon.com/WTC Squadcast. Now, let's get on with the show.
Hello everybody and welcome to the World Team Championship official podcast, the WTC Squadcast, Into the Squad. In this podcast we get a deeper insight to the teams that come to the tournament and how they work and how they find their teams and what do they look for in the event. I'm Ashik and today I'll be hosting the Polish interim captain Tifus, who's also known with his actual name Piotr. Hi.
Hi guys. Hi guys. Well,
Guys,
yeah. You're not multiple people at this point.
As far as you know, I'm not multiple people. Maybe I have some people who are listening in. Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, you're not the actual captain, right? You have stated that you are the interim captain at the moment?
Yes. So for this moment, we, as a national team, we have different captains every year. Sometimes we have one captain for a few years in a row, but currently we do not have one set up for next year. So we are kind of waiting till we decide who will be the captain this year. So I'm just taking all the responsibilities of being active on the forums or answering questions or joining the podcast, etc. So I'm more like a representative of our community at this point rather than a captain.
So you are the connection between the previous captain and the upcoming one?
Yes.
Oh.
Who knows, maybe I'll be the next one, maybe I'll be reffing, I don't know yet. It will all be decided within this year.
Okay, so when will it be decided then? When does the Polish team actually decide? Can you give me a timeline of when does the Polish team find their captain, start forming their team, and have a ready team with the factions and everything set?
So we do not have anything set very strictly.
Mm-hmm.
Our approach is that we have two people who we call selectors of the team. This year it's 3 people actually. So those people are responsible for following the meta throughout the whole year and checking how different players fare in our community. So it's more like training for one year and choosing from all the people that wanna attend the event the squad that we will think will be the best according to the meta and skill-wise, mentally-wise, etc. So we usually choose the team around May, although some people are preset earlier. So there are obviously players that we have nearly every year in our team. So if they are available, they are kind of auto-included.
Mm-hmm.
Or for example, in certain years, we are forced to. Maybe forced is a bad word, but basically top 3 players in our national league, if there's enough tournaments in a league that year, will get automatically into the national team. So this year and previous year, obviously it wouldn't apply with all the COVID restrictions happening, etc. But in the following years, we'll be using the singles events that we run in our community to choose the best players and the ones that play the most, basically.
All right. So
but the other ones are chosen by those selectors and the rest of the team. using some very subjective criteria.
That seems to be a theme. Like everybody thinks the teams, even like from the lower to top teams, they think that there is an objective way, but the teams, as quickly as they gather experience, seem to conclude that there is really not an objective meritocratic way, at least just based on performance in tournaments. You need to form a team who can function as a team and not just in 8 individual players.
Yeah, and there are also things of you cannot choose only the winners of tournaments because they would be all playing AdMech right now.
Or orcs.
And that kind of doesn't work. Yeah, so it doesn't really work when it comes to choosing the best team, as you cannot duplicate any armies in the 8-man team format, so you need to have some variety of players and armies in there.
All right, so yeah, that's obviously true. And okay, so how big of a pool are we talking about in the Polish community? What is the average size of the tournament in Poland?
I think we are a quite small community, maybe not as small as Luxembourg, as they were in the previous podcast, but the biggest tournament each year is Polish Team Championship, which we just had, and it had around 110 players. So that's like our biggest tournament every year. So our community, I would say, isn't that big. And when you think about it, that tournament, as all team tournaments, gathers all those players that wouldn't normally attend. So it gets all the casual players as they go together with their team to just have fun. So I would say when it comes to like average tournaments, we get around 30 to 40 players on each bigger tournament, and like local tournaments we get up to 20.
Okay,
So I would say our community is pretty small when compared to other major teams that are our rivals when it comes to winning the event.
Okay, so I was actually going to ask that as well. If so, that must be a really capable player base then with that can put out such conditions, such performances. Because Poland has been a top team. I think they are. I think Poland is the top scoring team out of the all past ETCs, and you guys win every tournament I do, every tournament I host. It gets boring after a while. By the way, it's like, oh, another Polish team win my tournament, which is not zero. Okay, and I. So how does that work?
Sorry, not sorry.
That's
So basically, our community, as you can already tell, is very competitive, and we know that we do not really have the biggest player base. So we try to focus every year on just the WTC. So the whole year we try to force players to play different armies. So there's maybe 3 players of AdMech in those 30 players. And we try to get some diversity, so we get more input depending on like all those non-top meta armies. So we try to diversify and kind of enforce different mindset that comes with all those team events. And furthermore, we are only playing using the latest WTC rules, latest WTC packs all the time. Every tournament uses those. So everyone is very familiar with it. And we, furthermore, right now, since the COVID started, we played like, I don't know, 28 V8 games using TTS to train new players and like test out different ideas for pairings. And we've played against a lot of top teams. We are currently, for example, playing versus France, but we've played versus teams like England, Canada, Spain. So we are trying hard all the time to stay on top of our game, and we also have players who are playing specific armies only those specific armies. So, for example, we have one guy who's playing Necrons, who's only playing Necrons into all the pairings, and he's trying to get every inch out of that codex. So he can be the best player in a team setting. So we have all those dedicated players, and furthermore, as the state of the game is as it is, I think team events are even better right now. So we have more eagerness in our community to play those team events. So for example, in like 3 weeks time, we will get a team meeting in Warsaw where we will gather around 32 players and we will only play 8v8 games throughout the whole weekend. So we will draft those players, we will build team compositions, we will try to test some new things during pairings. So we are very dedicated throughout the whole year to just training for this one event. And I think that's really needed when it comes to such a small community like we have, because with the rotation of players we have, if one of those top dogs stops playing the game, we need to train new promising players as well. So they need to be trained from the very bottom of their skill and actually learn how different the game looks when you factor in the whole team setting.
Okay, that's interesting, but that was a good train of thought because it shows that in order to put a good WTC squad with such a small community, it's entire like the community has to revolve around the event, and throughout the year it just actually work to that singular goal, or otherwise it will simply not put enough, let's say, strategic power to match the bigger nations.
Yes, we like statistics aren't in our favor when it comes to this. We do not have enough players to statistically have so many good ones to choose from. But I think there is something about Polish people that we are really good in most of the tabletop games. I don't know what's happening there, that it's like that. But I think we have some specific drive that actually makes it easier for us to be very competitive at these kinds of games. So we have like limited player pool, but we try to squeeze everything out of it.
Yeah, it's a very dense, very capable player pool, and it's like it seems to show itself in every, like you said, in Night Age, in X-Wing, not just in 40k, in any tabletop games. It's like I wouldn't be surprised of international tournament Polish win again. Oh, what a surprise! No, no one would say if they have any knowledge of the community that Poland won. That's always sounds a bit mystical out from outside.
Actually cannot pinpoint why is it like that. I think it's something about, I don't know, our upbringing or some mentality in our country that maybe is helping that. But also I think there's another reason, as I would expect some more of the Western countries to actually have similar approach. I think we have a little bit better salaries, so our community can more easily afford this game. So it might also impact this.
Okay, so about the team specifically, you mentioned the team needs to work as obviously a cohesive unit, but can you get into how, let's say, how do you actually choose the team? If you can give me details, like the specific, like do you look for anything specific, or do you look for like more intangible things?
Okay, so there are many factors that you need to factor in, like skill of the player, how well they perform under pressure, what's their language, like how well they can speak English, which is also a factor because at some point you need to communicate with your opponent, and Google Translate isn't really the best solution.
Yeah.
Uh, Although I've seen players do that at some events.
I have seen players where they simply played without speaking a word of English. Both of them.
Yeah, you can do that, but that's not what we're looking for. But anyway, what we're mostly looking for is actually players who have good results against like those players I've mentioned that are regulars in our team. Like you have players like me, Vladi, Skark, that were in the team multiple times and are still in the community. And if you can go to an event or on TTS and win against those top players, you will be recognized by other top players and you will be included into the let's so call it fight club of those top dogs that we share all our ideas. I think another point which also strengthens our community is that we do not have that much rivalry between, I don't know, clubs, cities, etc. We try to share all our knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So effectively, if we find something specific, let's say in Warsaw, we share it with everyone. So our whole community learns from one person's experience. So that's also very helpful.
All right. So, is the community that much separated, or I don't know how Polish geography works, but it's like, is it that hard to get to events in other cities, or is it easy for other people to get to Warsaw, for example?
No, what I meant by saying what I said
No,
is that
I understand.
it's not about traveling. It's about not being secretive. But when it comes to Warsaw, like Poland, I think the traveling isn't that much of an issue unless you are living in like near the borders, and if you are living in eastern Poland, you kind of don't want to go to western Poland because it's a few hours of a drive. But compared to US, it's nothing. So it's all a question of perspective. But overall, I think whenever a top player wants to go to an event, it's only a matter whether he wants to take, I don't know, Friday off, so to make sure he will sleep enough before the event. So the distances aren't an issue here.
Okay, that's good to know because that seems to be in. It is nice to see how not nice, but interesting to see how different countries have different problems with. It's like, for example, Norwegians have, although the distance with like the bird flight distance is quite close, it takes a long time to travel by car in their country, so it's the communities are a bit separated. And in Luxembourg, although they are close, some apparently there are some players who complain about, oh, but I have to drive 15 minutes. That's so far away. And it's like that.
Oh yeah, first world problems, huh?
Indeed. All right. So you chose your team. I would like to more. Let's actually get the inner details, the secrets of Team Poland. Let's say, how do they work? And okay, so let's say you choose your teams. You mentioned that you chose the teams among like with already some players only play certain factions. I would expect when the team is selected, they are selected with the factions mostly set.
Yes.
All right. So
Yes, and we have few flex players. Let's say that whichever army they get, they will play it well. So those flex players are usually the easier ones to choose because they can be chosen when we already know the other players and the other armies. It obviously comes with some disadvantages because for some time I was that player, so I was chosen as one of the last players in the team, and I was forced to build something out of all the armies that were left, which isn't always fun. But it's
the
also very
rejects.
important for yes, it's also very important for team setting when you have players like that because they can kind of play anything, and usually those players are kind of selfless, so they don't care about their own scores. And I think that's another thing that you need to take into account. Ego doesn't help in team setting; it only makes it worse. So you need to be aware that you need sometimes you need to sacrifice your own score for the good of the team.
Yeah, that is always that's always nice to see where you play the matches where you know you're going to lose, and even if there is a chance you'll lose only 1-19 instead of a 0-20, you play that game to the end, so maybe you can win that 1 point for the team, and you need players.
And that's another reason why I hate the system that GGW is forcing, the win, draw, lose one. I think it flattens the game and the interactions a lot. With let's say the last Sokal tournament that Sean lost nearly all of his army in one turn. In 0-20 scoring, you'd still fight for those, 3 points in that game. But in the setting when 1 point difference means you lost, there is no incentive to continue that game.
Yeah,
it flattens the experience.
I would like to get your actual opinion about the 0-20. Although I'm in favor of the 0-20, there is the criticism of even though you win 5 games, if you don't win them enough, that somebody with 4 wins and a loss might end up on top of you in the rankings.
I don't see that as an issue.
Okay, so you don't see that as a problem to solve to begin with?
No, I don't think that's an issue. I don't think winning every game is worth as much as, for example, dragging out that 7 points in 20-0 system against Admech, who went first, and then in another games actually winning those games that you should win, while getting as many points as you can get from very bad pairing. So it's different perspective. I just think you should be rewarded for making sure that very bad pairings you can get as many points as you can.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a more, not a radical, I wouldn't say radical, but that's a more firm approach on the side of the 0-20. It's like, you are happy with it. Correct me if I'm misrepresenting you. You are happy with it, and you think it's a accurate way to measure success in a tournament.
Especially in a game where going first or going second means whether you win or lose certain pairing in win or lose system, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it gives more representation of how good the player is when he goes second and he gets those few points that he would in win draw lose system he would never get. So
No, I understand it, and I agree with you. That's a very good case, especially it provides a more in-depth result than just a like 0-1-2 win-loss draw system. So I agree. Go on, please.
But also I'm heavily biased because when we saw the win draw lose system, we told our community that we would never play it, so we have no tournaments in that system. So that's another reason we are never on ITC or any best coast pairings, because they only allow win draw lose right now. So we have no events happening according to those pages.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that we couldn't enter. I was planning to.
No, you need to provide win paths and probably you could kind of cheat it by manufacturing the scores.
No, I don't want to do that. Like maybe so.
But like it's not easily accessible as Turnkeeper, for example.
No, that's interesting. It's the tournament management software is another discussion, and it's like there are like best cost pairings provides better statistics if you want to dive into that, but Turnkeeper is more pen and paperish, and I feel it can do a lot more if the tournament organizers knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Go. So one thing, sorry, another thing I want to ask about the Polish community is, like, what do you plan to do when, like, do you have actually a goal before you come to the event? Like most teams have, okay, we'll be happy if we get this result, will be happy with if we don't do this much win or loss? Like, do you just
Okay, so if we don't come first, our community always hates us because we spend the whole year to actually get prepped for it, and then it's like community. It involves whole community to actually go for the tournament. Everyone is cheering. Everyone is trying to help our players get better for that one event. So if we don't get the first place, or I don't know, at least top 3, we are met with pitchforks and flames. So it's not really the best solution. But at every event, we always strive to be first.
well?
And if it happens to not be so, well, then we messed up.
Well, I can. You seem, at least the Polish team in general, seems to make a good success about it, because you are the, like, if you look into the past of the ETC times, and I have, like, on the WTC webpage, there is a history of the past events, and Poland is the most successful team. They are, with a good amount, like with a slightly decent margin of passing Germany for the most successful team so far, and you have several first place wins, which at least one of them was under your captaincy.
No. My captaincy, we were second.
Oh yeah, in Spain it was a second, right? Oh, I remember that. I was talking with you, and you were. Okay, so I'm going to blame the Polish community a bit now, if they are listening, and it's like, this guy takes you to Spain, and he gets shit-faced drunk after Tuesday afternoon, and Wednesday morning he's half dead, and he still takes your sorry asses and makes you bring home a second place trophy, and you guys are not happy with it. Shame on you. I mean that.
I will correct one thing. I wasn't shit-faced when the team event happened. It was only singles.
Yeah, that's what I said. Okay, yeah, that's Wednesday. Yeah, it was single.
You wouldn't get shit-faced at the, like, we don't mind drinking beers throughout our games, and we kind of even like it to make it still a social event for us. We are not so serious about, like, we are serious about winning, but we are not win at all cost type of guys. So
okay, well,
we
I
like our beers during our games.
I know. I think I have. If the listeners are watching this on YouTube, there is at least 1 or 2 pictures of Piotr himself that's rolling in the background drinking. So, if you like, he's
now you're painting a picture of me being an alcoholic. That's great.
no, not like it's inaccurate.
Oh well. I guess I'll take it anyway. But yeah. What I wanted to pinpoint with the whole topic is that we always want to win this event. We for example, we are playing 2 8v8 games each month with different national teams using TTS. We have team events. Multiple team events yearly. We even have meetings like the one in a few weeks where we play 8v8 games only. So, like, we are very serious about it. Mainly we do not even think about attending those events like LGT or those famous GW events in the US. We don't really care about it. Actually, we only care about going to those team events. When you actually see Polish people traveling, we only travel to the team events around the Europe. Yeah. So we really do not care about the singles. There are obviously singular players in our community who care about it, but most of them are not.
Okay, that seems to be a thing. It's like people are, especially more, let's say, the British and the Americans. Once we talk with them, they don't really understand how good the European, especially the Polish community is when it comes to 40k, and they are sort of set back a bit when we especially mention players like Skark, and he's like, he is one of the best players in the world, but you have never heard of him.
But like we don't really care about the publicity. Like we in current setting of the world, publicity is a lot. But I don't think in our community we are actually trying to get more publicity. We had some reports from our tournaments on Gloomhammer. Why we did actually is because we have one guy who's from UK that's traveled to Poland and is staying in Poland, and he had a comparison of like average Joe in UK and in Poland, and he is kind of forcing us to become more public, but we hesitate about it and we really don't want to do it. So he's doing it all for us, like writing to Gunhammer to include our events, etc.
So is it?
And even when you look at those events on Gunhammer, you will see that those that were reported were team events. So, case in point.
So is it because you want to keep secret, or you simply don't care about being in the forefront of the 40k celebrity, quote unquote 40k celebrity gossip channels? Or
I cannot say it for everyone, but like from my standpoint, I don't really care. Those people who will know us, they will know us. We do not need everyone to know about us.
Okay. To be honest, the Polish community has been a great sight to see in both the ETC and the WTC community, and every tournament. Like, jokes aside, they are really good guys. Like, you guys are really great guys, and it is always nice to see you attend events, because that way I know the event will have a good quality of players in it, but also who don't have sticks up their asses as well. So
that's actually another thing we are trying to make sure it doesn't happen in our community. We are kinda we are trying to remove all the negative people who are playing, or maybe remove is a bad word, or we try to force them to not be like this. So whenever we go for a team event, we won't have to worry that they will, for example, do a dick move and then have to argue with a referee and then we'll get penalized. That's something that we are trying for some time already, because at some point, Poland had that reputation along with Germany, I think. It was a long time ago, but we weren't like perceived as the nicest guys at times, which I don't think should apply anymore, and I don't want such persona to be attached to our community.
Well, I can say, at least from my personal perspective, since I only started attending events in 2016. So although it has been a while, it hasn't been that long, and the Polish community is, in my opinion, one of the exemplar teams that you can show, who is like both capable, also who are also not decks, who are also a very nice bunch of guys. So it's like, this is a compliment that I can give any time of day.
I'm glad to hear it. That's what we're striving for.
Okay, this is about. So you have mentioned that in the past there were some issues. Now it's better, at least perceived issues. But what do you think will go on with Team Poland in the future? What is expecting Team Poland? Like, do you have any plans to do, or let's say expectations for the future?
Oh, that's a hard question. Well, I hope we can finally win the fucking event. Because it was last time we won, it was, I don't know, 2014.
Let me check.
And since then we are second like 4 times, and it's annoying.
So you're ready to go back to the top of the podium then?
Yes, and we are really trying hard lately. So I can't wait to go for that event and then not be, for example, on podium, or even not winning or not being on podium, because we are playing the game with Oryx, Admech, and Hiveguard, that's completely role of reliant. So I can't wait for that to happen.
Well, the event is like still about 10 months away, so who knows at the stage of the meta.
So hopefully that will change
Oh,
because currently our community is being diverted from this game
um,
with all the shit that's happening.
oh, I agree. It's especially like people had hopes for until about, let's say, this month, October, but then it's sort of like the illusion is shattered now, and it's like, okay, it seems to be a communal realization that, oh, this game is as bad as Seventh now,
Yes.
and
And
it's
it's sad because ending on of 8th and the event in Serbia actually I think was the healthiest metagame we ever had.
oh yeah,
And
I agree
to
fully.
see such drastic change is kind of painful.
It's definitely like you. I didn't think like there were so many. I was a bit annoyed about the amount of codexes in the at the end of eight with the campaign books and the specialist detachments, but there
Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah, it was annoying to follow.
But it wasn't that there was okay. This army has 60% win rate. It across the whole community. Maybe certain players did because they were very good players with who knew their armies well, but it wasn't like okay. I won turn one and the game is over. That was really rare.
Yeah, I think better example of how good the game was back then is top 3 in Serbia. I think had when it comes to like lists, I don't think there was a single list that was nearly a copy of another one in the top 3. Which right now, would you say one Admech is different from another if it has like one plane less and 2 chickens more?
No, it's
Not
essentially the
really.
same. It's like AdMech, Dark, essentially all the 9th edition codexes, and then as now probably with the Hive Guard and the Guard maybe, and it's like if the current meta continues at this trend, it will probably see eight same armies, somewhat like seventh where we had 6 Death Stars and 2 Death Star killers.
Yeah, currently when we were choosing a team for a game against France, we had 6 armies that we were sure we will bring. Like there was no discussion what we bring, and then we had to think very thoroughly for the last 2. So it shows, and when I recall those events in previous edition, it was mostly like 4 armies that we are sure we would bring, and then we had very long discussions. And those depended not necessarily on the army level, but more on the players, what players were available, what players wanted to play with, which right now, I don't think that player skill and player preference doesn't matter if you get shot off the board in one turn.
Yeah, that's one of the good. This is a bit timeless. Uh, One of the good things about team tournaments is that there usually isn't 8 perfect armies that you most of the time there isn't 8 perfect armies where you simply just take and there's no brainer. Usually 40k is at a state where 3 or 4 armies is very good, but then you have to make sacrifices for the other 4, which the teams can show their understanding, their preference, and their meta, and that's usually where the team event shines. To see so different, strange armies coming all across the board, where Russia brings this, but Poland brings that, and then Australians have a total different understanding because their meta is so alien to the European one, but the Canadians have something entirely unthinkable, and that we seem to be losing that a bit currently, and that is a bit sad.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of connected with the publicity of 40k and late GW changes as well. Because with all those Gunhammers, meta watches, etc., we kind of make it easier to net list
Everybody's
as
more
well.
connected, more the information is spread more
Yes,
quickly.
yes, which wasn't the case, for example, in 7th or 5th edition. and then you could see very different approaches, which I don't think will happen so much right now, and it would require a lot of playtesting and will from players, which we are trying to force in our community to not get forced by the current of the metagame to bring the same lists over and over, because what we've seen from all the events, bringing lists that somebody doesn't know how it works is also an advantage, because you might be playtesting against specific list, but you will never actually know how well it plays unless somebody actually plays it. And by somebody, I mean the player who invented that list and is aware of all the inner workings and small decisions that happen during the list building. So, and right now, with all the coachings that you pay for, with all the publicity, you actually kind of lose that, because you just copy and paste those lists. And I think it's more and more visible, at least I can see it in our community, and I can see it across the globe when I look at those events.
Yes.
So I hope when it comes to WTC, it won't be so streamlined, and we'll still be surprised by what, for example, you will be surprised for what we bring, because we are trying to stay on our toes. And same applies to, like, say, Russia or other countries that aren't really so well known or public with their ideas of the game.
Yeah, even the TTS thing that you, even with practicing on TTS tournaments, that sort of undermines trying to keep it secret, because if you want to test those armies might be leaked, become public if you just crush your opponent. So the TTS is good in that regard of practicing, but it's also bad if you try to keep the army secret, or at least less public than what it could be.
Yeah, but our approach is we don't want to. We will play on TTS those 8v8 games till, let's say, April, May, and then we will just shut off.
Oh.
Because right now we can show some of our ideas. There will be many more armies happening. There will be a lot of changes in the meta. We are just trying to stay sharp. But when it will come to close to the event, we will not share our ideas and make it more secretive.
Okay, so Team Poland will go to seclusion around late spring, and then come up with special armies that will crush everybody and take first place, hopefully.
Or don't work at all, because we overfought. So, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So, okay, I think this was a nice chat, and I have some other questions, but I think this covers almost everything I had. If people want to find Team Poland, where can they find Team Poland? I know you guys have a Facebook page which will be linked, but is there any podcast or other communities where they can connect with you?
So basically, we have one podcast that, for people who do not understand Polish, which I assume most of you are, that's a Contact Loss podcast. It's done by some people that are native speakers in our community, and it's done fully in English. So if you want some coverage from Polish meta, some of our ideas, but in English, just look up the Contact Loss podcast, just like the mission that we all hated in previous editions.
It will be linked in the description below. I'll link it, don't worry.
Oh, that's great. So if you want some insights on what's happening, lately, for example, Neil was featured on that podcast when we talked about LGT and our experience refereing that one. So
about that
one and our...
Go on, please.
Yeah, go on.
And you were at the we sort of glossed over it, and I didn't mention it as well. You are actually not just the Polish captain. You had been the WTC referee for at least 2 years, at least back in the ETC days, and you had refereed the LGT itself with over 500 players and many big team tournaments with over 100 players. So that...
Yeah.
No, I don't. I
I
just
have some experience.
as refereeing, and I sort of didn't want to essentially gloss over that because we sort of directly dived into. So, if you do you see, just as a quick
Yeah.
note before we wrap things up, do you see a connection of uh, managing the players, and would that does that help with your refereeing, or does the vice versa affect? So, be having experience as a referee, does it help with your team management skills and being a captain for a team?
I think it's all interconnected. If you if you played with some dicks, you already had to deal with them, so you are well set for being a referee at some point. And the same but for captain, it's helpful as well. But for captain, you need to have better overview about the whole game. So that's completely another topic.
All right. Well, one final question for you, and this
Yeah, yeah,
is:
yeah.
can you describe your ideal WTC for us? This can be tangible things such as, oh, I want X material and this kind of beer, or it can be intangible things like a friendly atmosphere, or essentially whatever you can think of as you. What do you want to see as the WTC?
So I will answer this into versions of myself.
Yeah, of
First one
course.
is a competitive player, which is then I would want the system that Zach had for referees and LGT. I think that one is a great solution and thing that should be incorporated. And from what I know, it will be. That's one thing.
Can you explain what
And
it is
another,
for? Since, for example, I have some idea, but I don't know.
okay, so the idea is you have a walkie-talkie system with refs being called by some main refs sitting at the referee desk, and he gets all the calls using a WhatsApp chat. So he can filter out the basic questions from the players, and there's no running for refs around the hallways, which was an issue during the past events. So I think it will be even more helpful but from my experience, the standards for refereeing were already set very high by the WTC events, which actually is the reason why we were included at LGT as well, right? We were
So,
known names.
so
But
essentially, you want video assisted referee system like the football we used back in 40K.
yes, and I think it's a great change, which will make it easier for both players and referees to actually get quick calls. And that's one thing. And another thing that comes to my mind is from not a competitive player standpoint, but more from a guy who comes to the event to just meet old friends. If there was a chance that nearly all the teams could stay at one place, that would be awesome thing, because we had some events in Poland, like those Polish team championships, where everyone slept at the same venue because it was like a huge hotel or something. It actually meant that you could socialize with every team and not be spread around the whole city in your own hostels or Airbnbs or whatever.
I
And I
agree with
think
you.
that's a great thing. It might be hard to manage and actually find a place which will fit so many players and to sleep and actually play. But it's a great thing because for most people who actually attend WTC, it's not only the games, but it's also the social part and atmosphere and meeting up with your old pals you only see maybe once or twice a year, but you've played against them once, twice. You actually remember those games very nicely, and you are really happy to see them being there once again and you being able to play against them once again. So it's more a social thing for me, and that's why I, for example, like refereeing. And if we could actually get everyone to be more connected, that would be great, because those parties at the last day of event, they are great, but some teams already left.
Yeah,
Like you don't really get to socialize with everyone,
no, I agree with you
and
fully.
that's a bummer.
And it's if you this tournament is not continuing since 2020 because of obvious reasons, but the Belgium Team Championships is a perfect example of what you're talking about. The entire event takes place in just essentially one complex, and it takes 3 minutes for you to walk from one end to the other at most. And you go there Friday evening, you stay there, you eat there, you play there, and so you get to spend 48 hours with essentially 40k nuts. And I fully agree with you. If we can do that, I think if we can do that as a WTC, that might be a great thing. And if the logistics allow and if there is enough facilities, this is something we always consider. So I hope we can do that someday for you.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. And if you have any shout-outs, if you want to say hi to somebody or something, you can do that now. Or
Okay, I'll do my classic one. Fuck you, Alex. That's all I have to say.
Perfect. That's quick and precise too. I hope it finds its destination. Well, thanks for coming on, and I hope we'll see you again sometime soon.
See you.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and hope you guys listen to the future episodes of the WTC Squadcast.